What if some of Australia's best cars were ignored simply because they weren't loud enough? One Falcon was better than people remember, one Commodore lived in the shadow of legends, and one luxury Holden deserved far more respect than it ever got. Welcome to the 12 forgotten Australian cars that were never bad, just badly underrated. The XC Falcon is one of those cars history has almost completely swallowed, and that is a shame because this was Ford Australia firing on all cylinders during one of the most difficult periods in automotive history, wearing sharper lines than the XB it replaced and looking genuinely modern. Under that skin, Ford offered everything from the 3.3-litre 6 up to the 5.8-litre V8, and the Cobra Special Edition injected color and attitude that made the range feel alive rather than merely sensible. This was Ford at its most competitive. What makes the XC so underrated today is how completely it has been buried beneath the GT-badged cars that came before it. Enthusiasts obsess over XA and XBs, while the XC sits quietly unappreciated, making it one of the smartest buys in the Australian classic market right now. The CM Valiant arrived in 1978 as the final chapter of one of the most distinctive automotive stories Australia has ever produced, bowing out with considerably more dignity than most people give it credit for, despite Chrysler's Australian operation collapsing completely around it. The CM wore smoother, more contemporary styling than the boxy Valiants before it, and offered interior comfort that rivaled Holden and Ford of the era. The 3.5-litre Hemi 6 remained under the bonnet, an engine so robust and reliable that owners still talk about it with genuine reverence. The tragedy is that the CM's timing destroyed its reputation before the car ever got a fair hearing. Being last of a dying brand made buyers nervous and the press dismissive, burying a genuinely excellent Australian sedan that deserved far better than history has given it. The XD Falcon was a complete reinvention, arriving in 1979 having shed the XC's pony car proportions in favor of something far more European in flavor, with razor-sharp creased bodywork and a chassis finally properly sorted to handle Australian roads with real composure. The 4.1-litre inline 6 proved an engine of remarkable durability, and the XD also introduced proper rack and pinion steering to the Falcon range, a feature that completely transformed how the car communicated with the driver compared to anything that had previously worn the Falcon badge. What the XD never recovered from was launching straight into Australia's second oil crisis, which made its size look like a liability regardless of how accomplished the car actually was. Drive one today and the verdict is clear. Ford built something genuinely special here, and 1979 buried it. And this is where the list starts getting properly interesting, because the next few cars were not failures, not jokes, and not forgotten for any good reason. One of them was a luxury Holden that arrived at the worst possible time, and another helped change what an Australian family car could be. The WB Statesman arrived in 1980 into one of the worst possible markets for a large luxury car, with fuel prices biting hard and economic anxiety making anything big look irresponsible. Yet what Holden built was a car of genuine quality and commanding road presence, with interior refinement extraordinary by Australian standards. Engine options included 4.2-litre and 5.0-litre V8s that were smooth, torquey, and perfectly matched to the car's relaxed grand touring character. It was built specifically for Australian distances with a seriousness of purpose the contemporary market simply refused to reward. Today, the WB Statesman sits at the intersection of undervalued and genuinely rare because production was modest and survival rates have not been kind. Finding a clean example requires real patience, but the reward is one of the most characterful Australian classics available at any price. The TM Magna was a genuine earthquake in the Australian car market when it arrived in 1985, and almost nobody talks about it today, which borders on historically unjust. Mitsubishi built a locally engineered front-wheel drive family sedan and took the fight directly to Holden and Ford. Under the bonnet sat a 2.6-liter Astron 4-cylinder that was smooth and flexible, paired with a front-wheel drive chassis delivering handling quite unlike anything Australians had previously experienced in a locally made car. The interior felt deliberately engineered, rather than merely assembled from existing components. The TM Magna deserves to be remembered as a brave car because launching a front-wheel drive challenger into Falcon and Commodore territory required serious institutional confidence. It changed the direction of Australian family motoring, influenced competitors across the following decade, and did all of that while being quietly, persistently excellent. The R31 Skyline sedan is the forgotten cousin in a family that became a legend, buried not because it was bad, but because the GTR era swept everything preceding it aside. Australian R31s ran the naturally aspirated RB30E inline 6, smooth and willing for the era, though the car famously missed out on the turbocharged RB30ET that Holden got in the VL Turbo. A strange footnote that makes the R31 story more interesting rather than less. A 5-link live rear axle gave it a different character from the independent rear Skylines that followed. Today, the R31 sedan is invisible at enthusiast events, standing in the shadow of R32s and R33s without a second glance. That invisibility is becoming genuine rarity, values are stirring, and finding a clean, unmodified example is already meaningfully harder than 5 years ago. So far, these cars have one thing in common. They were good enough to matter, but not famous enough to be protected, and the next 3 prove it even more because one Commodore, one Falcon, and one forgotten Mitsubishi are still sitting in the shadows today. The VP Commodore was the car that fixed what the VN had left unfinished, and the frustrating part is that almost nobody noticed. Holden launched it in 1991 to address the noise and harshness complaints that had dogged the VN since launch, and for once, the brief was genuinely met. The VP carried over the 3.8-liter V6, but delivered meaningful improvements in refinement and noise suppression, making the engine feel far more appropriate in a family car. The 5.0-liter V8 remained for those needing real authority, and sharpened interior materials lifted the cabin presentation considerably. What the VP has going for it today is mechanical simplicity, solid parts availability, and a price not yet climbing. These are uncomplicated, satisfying cars still accessible for enthusiasts without deep pockets. Give it another decade, and the conversation will change entirely. The ED Falcon had one of the shortest production runs of any modern Australian car, sitting in showrooms for barely 18 months before the EF replaced it, and that narrow window has made it the most overlooked Falcon in the entire lineage, despite being a genuine step forward. Ford launched the ED in 1993 with revised suspension, an improved interior, and refinement, finally putting the Falcon on equal footing with the Commodore. The 4.0-liter inline-6 was smooth and torquey, and the dashboard was the cleanest the Falcon had worn. Today, the ED is virtually invisible in the classic Falcon conversation, dominated by muscle-era cars at one end and the EL at the other. That invisibility is the buyer's opportunity because good ED Falcons remain inexpensive, and a short production run means clean survivors are becoming scarcer every year. The KR Verada arrived in 1991 as Mitsubishi's serious attempt to build a genuine prestige sedan on Australian soil, sitting above the Magna range and offering luxury the brand had never previously attempted locally, with real leather and genuine attention to cabin quality throughout. The 3.0-liter V6 was notably smooth, delivering effortless performance, perfectly matching the Verada's upmarket character. The suspension was tuned for ride comfort without sacrificing composure, and the result held its own against far more expensive European alternatives from the same era. The Verada is almost completely forgotten today, which is extraordinary given how genuinely ambitious it was for its time. Mitsubishi was arguing that prestige motoring did not require a European badge, and for buyers who drove one with an open mind, the argument was surprisingly persuasive. Now we are down to the top three. And this is where the list stops being just underrated and starts becoming almost ridiculous. A Falcon people overlook, a Commodore hiding between two bigger names, and a luxury Holden that might be the best bargain Australia ever built. The EL Falcon gets plenty of attention in GT and XR6 form, but the standard sedan has been so thoroughly eclipsed by those performance variants that it has become almost invisible in the classic conversation, which is precisely where it does not deserve to be. Ford got the EL right in a way the entire EA through ED series had been working toward, with a 4.0-liter 6 finally smooth and powerful enough to feel competitive, suspension delivering real driver satisfaction, and an interior that could be called premium without embarrassment. Survivors in clean, original condition are harder to find than most people expect, because these were everyday family cars worked hard and rarely carefully preserved. The ones that surface represent extraordinary value, offering the complete EL experience at prices still reflecting ordinary family transport. The VX Commodore is the forgotten jewel of the modern Commodore lineage, sitting between the celebrated VT that launched the generation and the iconic VY that followed, somehow overlooked by enthusiasts of both camps, despite being the most refined and accomplished iteration of the three. Holden used the VX to make everything measurably better with revised suspension, improved interior quality, and powertrain refinements, making both the 3.8-liter V6 and the 5.7-liter Gen 3 V8 feel smoother. The SS delivers genuine performance satisfaction at prices that remain almost embarrassingly accessible. Finding a clean, unmodified VX requires effort because these popular cars attracted enthusiasts who were not always gentle. The survivors that escaped modification represent outstanding value, offering genuine performance and everyday usability at prices that have simply not yet caught up with what the car deserves. If you want to understand how good Australian manufacturing could be when Holden committed to a genuine luxury brief, the WH Statesman is your answer, and the fact that it now trades for the price of a tired hatchback is one of the great injustices of the local classic market. The 5.7-liter Gen 3 V8 delivers effortless power perfectly suited to the long wheelbase body and its grand touring mission. Wood grain trim, leather, and a genuine luxury car atmosphere make the rear seat feel first class in a way the standard Commodore could never approach. Today, the WH Statesman may be the single most underrated Australian car available, offering genuine luxury and refinement at prices that remain unbelievably modest. Parts supply is solid, costs reasonable, and every kilometer delivers a sense of occasion most cars at 3 times the price cannot match. And that's why these cars deserve a second look, not because they were perfect, but because history was way too quick to forget them. Which underrated Aussie car do you think deserved more respect? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more forgotten Australian cars. Thank you for watching and goodbye.